Okay, we're ready to rock and roll. All right, so now we're going to be covering some pretty interesting things. Is that I always get this if you ever do if you go to theological seminary school, they will tell you that all the manuscripts are totally unreliable. That it's so contaminated. There's no way to understand it, and all this other BS. And I always get a kick out of that because number one, they say, well, there's over 200 different ways to spell a word. Like, so what? You understand? But even though they got degrees, they're like very ignorant. And I'm not saying they're stupid people, just that they're too specialized and they don't understand how it all fits together. Is that making sense? And you find a lot of these people that they're way overeducated and they don't see how it relates to life. They're not being what the Word of God said. They're supposed to live it, not know it. Knowing something is not the same thing as doing it. If you have a 6-year-old who says, I know what it is to be a parent. No, he doesn't. I'm ready to get married. No, you're not. He can answer all the questions. He can pretend he knows it, but they know absolutely what? Nothing. Just because they have a conceptualization in their mind, that does not justify their statement because there's no way they can handle that. Is that making sense? So it's only when you do something, how many ever learned something and then start doing it and realize you really didn't get it at all and you thought you did? I mean, I have juggling balls, right? And I could teach you how to juggle, but you go, okay, I got it, and then I can have you do it, and you can realize you don't know anything because you have to build up new wiring in your brain just to be able to juggle. You literally have to rewire your brain. So it doesn't happen like that. It takes time. So if you're going to be a policeman, if you're going to be a lawyer, if you're going to be a doctor, it doesn't happen like that. It takes time to develop the skills and ability. But you develop it by acting on it. See what I'm saying? Carrying out what you're supposed to do. You can't be a judge until you've been an attorney, and you can't be an attorney until you've been gone to law school, and you can't go to law school until you've had at least a high school education. Is that making sense? You have to go through these stages, and these stages are very set, and most people never even got past elementary school. That's what's sad. Okay, so now we're going to go into why all these versions have different spelling. I don't understand. The whole Bible's corrupted. No, it's not. You can go to the Tregelles, the Tischendorf, Westcott and Hort, Sinai Recepticus, any of the manuscripts from the 14th century, and it has nothing to do with spelling. Because spelling is subjective. Is that making sense? The only thing you have to worry about is the consonants. Whether you're Hebrew, whether you're Koine Greek, whether you speak Aramaic, has nothing to do with the spelling because we have too many diverse spellings. And the reason we have spellings is because not everybody says the words the same way. Picture, or ever heard the word okay? All right, what does it mean? What does okay mean? You ever wonder about that? I'm the only one who worries. I'm not worried, but is curious. I sat back there and said, why does people go, hey, okay? I'm like, freaking, what does that mean? Where did we get that from? Am I the only oddball here? Yeah, right, you're the only oddball. All right, so how does this work? All right, first of all, not everybody speaks the same way, right? We have people with different what? Accents. I've been to Mexico, and I've been astonished that what I learned Spanish from one person and his way of speaking is not the way they speak in another part, right? Like when I was in Ciudad Mexico and I learned the Spanish there, it's totally different than like at Oaxaca or at Leon. They talk where they keep their mouths closed and they just, you can't understand a word they're saying. Same thing with the United States, right? You can be in England, then go to Boston, and then go to Tennessee, and then and like, doesn't anybody here speak English? And then go to Australia and go, what the heck happened to their language? Yeah, it's English, but it's all pronounced what? Now what happens is, and it's always been that way, is that people write to duplicate the sounds they say, not by a standard. Never in the history of mankind until the last, 100 years, have we ever spoke only a standard. Like, how do you write wrist? W-R-I, what? Where's the W come from? How about right? Well, it's R-I-T-E, obviously. No, it's R-I-G-H-T, right? How do you get all those weird spellings? Because someone has a wild hair? Anyway. So let's review, okay? Let's go into the Ellis Island, right? You know what Ellis Island is, right? Where American people come in to become American from Europe, they wind up in Ellis Island in New York, the big Statue of Liberty. You know, you've seen that lady with the swing her underarms, right? Right. So in Ellis Island, they had, during the potato famine, a few of the other great tragedies of Europe in World War I, World War II. All these people came running over the United States, right? Well, they had an influx of a lot of people, right, as Hitler was rising in power. A lot of people left. I know it's hard to believe. They left Europe, right? And most of these people were from the Netherlands and from Holland and that part of Europe, Austrian-Hungary, what used the former Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And Fred got the heck out of Dodge, got a new zip code in the United States. They went through Ellis Island, and there were so many people coming in that they didn't know what to do. So the people they got processed were hired to take care of the new people coming in. Quick way to do that, right? All right, you're an American citizen. Raise your hand. Okay, now get to work. Processing the next people. They don't pronounce the things the same way. So you have to look at their forms, right? So the forms are being processed, and they go back there, and you have to sign it. You have to mark it as all correct. Repeat after me. All correct. Well, if you're from Germany, Netherlands, Holland, or even the Norway or Sweden, you don't pronounce all. You go all, and that's the sound of the O. And then correct has got the K sound. So they would go all correct. That's all OK means. It's all correct. All of it's good, all correct. That's all it means. So that's how we wind up with OK. You go to the Philippines and they have what's called ende, right, which means no, right? No way. Well, where'd that come from? It came from the Americans. Well, how did the Americans do that? Well, they used to have what's called no dice. Right? When you play dice, you get to where you don't get another turn, right? It's called no dice, right? So Americans who played craps would always sit there and go, no dice, no, you don't get it, you lose, right? That's what no dice means, no. So they go, no dice, ende. Ende means no. Mm-hmm. So it became into existence because of American servicemen. Like, where did you get this ende from? It's not normal Malay, but it's strictly Tagalog. So anyway, all these words are really fascinating to do research. Like, how the heck would we get this? But nobody ever has imagine Arnold Schwarzenegger, right? I'll be back. Now, how would you spell that to where it makes that sound? And if he gave it to someone else, they would read it and go, I'll be back, right? They would say it the same way he wrote it because he's writing what he is what? Saying. That's why there's so many different spellings. Got it? Has nothing to do, they didn't walk around and go, let me check the dictionary. There wasn't any dictionaries. People wrote ever read Mark Twain? How many never read Mark Twain? Mark Twain actually writes how people spoke. So as you read it, you hear the accents. And it drives you nuts when you're reading it because you actually hear them say these things in that accent. And you're like, okay, and you have to, what is he, you look up the dictionary, that's not there. He's doing it to make you say it the way they would have what? So you get the accent with it. Now in the Bible, you got different, in the Hebrew, you've got different versions. You got that which is northern and then southern. So there's two different versions and they had a different accent, therefore there's a different what? Spelling until you get to what's called the Chaldee. But anyway, so let's look at some manuscripts anyway. I'm going to try and explain some of these really important aspects of this. And I'm going to prove to you that you don't need spelling to communicate. Would that be interesting to you?
Yes.
Because if you're from India, before Alexander the Great decided to squash everybody, before Alexander the Great, the Persian Empire stretched from India all the way across into Israel, right? And down into Libya and Africa and all the way up into the north. So, and everybody spoke Aramaic. It was consistent. All communication was done, even though there were tons of accents. I mean, we're talking major accents here. To where it's almost, you ever spoke to someone from India?
Yeah.
Hello, you spoke to, yeah, and they're like, right? It's hard to understand what they're saying. Are they speaking English? Yes. Are you understanding them? No. Why? The accent's different. And they got phrases, just like if you go to Tennessee. I remember I was driving my car, and I got off in the wild blue yonder, and I walked up to somebody and I say, "Excuse me, I'm trying to get to," and I told him where I was going to. And he goes, "Well, can't get there from here." I go, "Well, how am I going to get there then?" Well, I remember, you just go down about, maybe about 4 or 5, maybe a bit further down. And you're going to find this tree. Oh, my God. Can you speak a little faster? But everybody has their own way. And if you had them spell so that you could hear their accent, people always do that. We have Twitter today. Who actually sits back and looks and see if they tweet according to the dictionary? Nobody does that. Well, what do you think? So what do you think? And they go IDK. What the hell is IDK? Or LOL, right? Laugh my ass off. That's a different one. That's laugh out loud or whatever. But you understand, we don't know what these words mean, but it makes sense in the context. I don't what? IDK. You just kind of figure it out. Even though almost all the letters are missing. Does that make sense? All right. So here's Proto-Hebrew, which is like it's a version of Aramaic. Remember I told you read from right to left. Right. Okay?
Is it upside down?
Here is another, pardon? No, it's not upside down. It's reading right to left. Remember Eastern culture, they read from right to left. The dummy Greeks and Romans read from left to right. And you'll notice that, these are what's called uncials because there is no small letters and there is no punctuation. Notice there's no what? Punctuation. There's no separation between words. Either that's a freaking super long word or there's no separation between words. Remember? I taught you that. All right. Now this is a Greek manuscript. And look at that. One long word. Now this you read from left to right because it's what? Greek. But nonetheless, it's all caps, which makes it an unseal. If it's a running hand, where all the letters are connected, then it's called cursive. All manuscripts are divided into unseals and cursives. This is an unseal. Why, Frank? Why are they unseals? Because they're all what? Caps. There's no small letters. It's all capitals. Why don't they write in small? Because they didn't have any small letters. Got it? They only wrote in caps. You know anybody who writes and prints in caps? Don't they know how to write small letters? They choose not to, all right? Or someone tweet to you, freaking so loud, right? So caps. Ha, 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 okay. But you understand, no separation. Do you see any punctuation? Zero. You see any capitalization? Zero. Any parentheses? No. Any verses? No. Any chapters? No. Now try and read something like this. But the spelling, you got to break it down into words by looking at it and go, oh, okay, I got it. And then you see that the spelling is not quite right. So what? Pronounce it the way he spelled it, and you'll be speaking the way he does. Picture Arnold Schwarzenegger going, "All be back," right? And so he has to spell it, all be back, right? And he spelled it, and you can read it and go, "All be back," right? The way he would say it. Everybody spells the way they speak, unless they run and get a dictionary and try and conform to everybody. Got it? All right, now to prove this, I'm going to have, how many here are really avid at English? Are you a good English speaker? Thinking is a good thing. Okay. Can you read it?
I think so, yeah.
I think you might have to get up and look at it.
I do believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to a research from Cambridge University, is it doesn't matter what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind doesn't read every letter by itself. The word is a whole. Amazing, huh? Yeah, I always thought spelling was important.
All right, yeah. Let's give her an applause. That was awesome. You see that? Now that is a total disaster. But you don't. But that's not what it's about. It's not spelling. So this stupid, Erdman is a very intelligent man. I really, but he is the head of research in the world, and he is. Anyway. Now for those who speak, do you speak Spanish? Or do you speak English? Which one are you good at? Wait, can you read this like she did? Okay, go. Loud.
I couldn't believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to a research at Cambridge University, doesn't matter what order the letters in a word are. The only important thing is that the first and last letter be in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read it without a problem. This is because the human mind does not read every letter by itself, but the word as a whole. Amazing. Huh. Yeah, I always thought spelling was important.
Isn't that cool? Now you understand, the Hebrew has no vowels. And I know in the 8th century they added vowel points, but all they had was consonants. People say, well, how are you going to read that? Well, you've been reading it since you were a freaking child. You've had it read to you, and then you read it over and over and over, and eventually all you got to do is just need little what's called memory pegs, which is the first and last letter, and all of a sudden you know what the word is. Got it? It's a different culture in us. You got to learn your ABC, and you got to learn how to spell the word. It doesn't matter. You can be an absolute klutz and put everything, the whole alphabet in there, and it's still okay, as long as you got the first and last letters, which is what the Hebrew alphabet does. It's almost no more than 4 letters per word. It doesn't matter if you reverse the middle too. You still got the same letter, same word. Same way we do. You speak Spanish?
I think so. Yes.
All right, read this one. No, read it.
No podía creer que realmente pudiera entender lo que estaba leyendo. El poder fenomenal de la mente humana, según la investigación de la Universidad de Cambridge, no importa en qué orden estén las letras de una palabra. Lo único importante es que la primera y la última letra estén en el lugar correcto. El resto puede ser un desastre total y aún puedes leerlo sin problema. Esto se debe a que la mente humana no lee cada letra por sí misma, sino la palabra como un todo. Increíble, ¿eh? Sí, y siempre pensé que la ortografía era importante.
Well, applause about that, all right. All right, isn't that cool? Right? So you see, it has nothing to do with spelling. So I wish the people would shut the heck up. They don't know anything about how the human brain works. They're all stuck in there. The manuscripts are corrupted because it's spelled so many different ways. Frickin' you ever tweet? Nobody spells anything the same way. You read some letters, some of them written in cursive. Can you read any of that? As long as the first and last letters are there, you pretty much can figure it out. You understand the secret of reading? All manuscripts, I don't care if it's cuneiform, Aramaic, Hebrew. That's all it takes. Is that making sense? So this ironic statements of corruptivity concerning the manuscripts is totally irrelevant and is not even freaking considerable. All right, so this is kind of been cool, isn't it? Right, you understand the human brain does not read every single letter. It looks for the first and last letters and the context to determine what it is, which is how everybody meant. To sit there and say, well, they aren't spelling it right because the way this word's supposed to be spelled, like this person is an ignoramus or whatever. No, he's pronouncing it as himself would. Yes? All right. So let me continue on before I get extracted here. All right. So when did we actually have printed form? Because before that, everything was written by what? By hand. Everything was written by hand. Until when? Basically, it didn't catch on until about 1550. It was invented. The first printing press was basically taking an oil press and using it to press and then pulling it back up and then taking the paper out. You're basically using a wine press or an oil press and using it to press the paper onto a engraving or whatever. And that's how you got the first one. Etching gave you pictures, right? So by 1600, everybody, had access to or worked with a printing press. And that's why when Erasmus did his first books, it came out in the 1600s, was where it was 1550s, 1560s. The first books of printing press was by Erasmus. So his stuff went out like crazy. And then Martin Luther picked up and he did it. Does that make sense? So that's where we have a prolific of books. Before that, it would cost. Now understand, let's say, for instance, you wanted a book read. You wanted a book written for you, right? There's only one book and you want it copied, right? Take it to the Xerox. No, you don't. Someone has to sit down with that and copy it letter by letter, word by word. Takes forever, that's right. And while he's doing that, you're going to pay him. You're going to feed him, take care of him and his family. After 3 to 4 years, he would finish. That's right. So the people who had books were the very what? Wealthy. The very noble. Kings had books, they had libraries. But the average person, no. So books were always considered to be extremely valuable. In fact, any book made before the 1550s was handwritten, and those go for $1 million a piece. The illuminated ones, where the person not only hand wrote the letters, but also drew pictures and different colors over the page, those are called illuminated. And they go for even higher prices. Whereas the Christies just had one very small book that was done in the 14th century, and it went for $6 million. So the printing press revolutionized everything, because instead of having a book come out once every 3 years, they were whipping out books 1,500 a month, which ain't nothing today. I mean, they can whip those out. Harry Potter's books, But anyway, so this shows you the sequence of what it takes to get this thing out of there. By the way, I have a little miniature one. Me and Patricia built it. Except we got the thing backwards, so it's like. But anyway, it didn't work. I'm building it. It looks easy. It's really simple. The frame But you actually put the you fill the little sections here with the letters, and you put the fillers in there, and then you put your block that you want the picture in. Then you coat it, and you flip that back down, you pull it in there, and you pull this little thing, go the other side, and it presses in it, then you pull it back. Now they have also where you take and the sheet's like this freaking big, right? So what you do is you make it so that it prints upside down over here, right side up over here, and upside down and right side up, right? You go, that's weird. Why would you have a piece of paper? Because then you can fold it. Now, the problem is when you fold it and then you stitch it together, you have pages that stick together. I don't know if you've ever seen some of these old movies from the 18th century, is that when you bought a book, you also bought a serrated knife. So that you can cut it. Otherwise, you got a problem. I've already cut this one's open. I've already cut. As you can see, I've cut them already. What you do is you take your serrated knife and you go. Otherwise, you just wind up with a folded papyrus. I got some papyrus. This is not it. No, this is wood pulp, but it's pressed wood pulp and it's got preservatives in it. So this is a book by Sir Richard Burton in his time when he was in Arabia. It's the only account of anything we have from the Ottoman Empire. But anyway, so they all have to be cut because you have to cut it from the top sometimes, and that's not the bottom gets cut, and you cut it and so you can have the pages. Now what I've got here. All right. Now this one is really cool. This is all right. I should show you the next button here before I go there. All right. But this is the printing press, right? And this book came off that printing press in 1681. So, and when the dictionary is showing everybody the correct spelling? Well, the first one to come out was in 1604. That was England's first dictionary. But the United States didn't get their dictionary until 1806. So correct spelling was absurd. It didn't exist. Everybody spelled according to as they pronounced it. They wrote it. That's why you wind up speaking people's dialect or their accent than actually the word. So here we go. This is Erasmus's. I have several of his books, a whole bunch of them. But I saw this. One of the libraries went out of business, and they were auctioning off, and nobody auctioned for this. The going price was $5,000, and they were expecting to go up, and nobody bid on it except moi. And it's mine. Oh yeah. Now the reason they're smaller is because the world's economy crashed, just like we're heading into now. The whole economy crashed. There was no money anywhere. And it was because of what's called a tulip mania. And everything crashed and no one could afford it. So books went from being this big to being this big. So that happened in 1638. Not that I remembered it. It's just that I know it. Not that old. All right. But there you can see it's in Latin, which is, a challenge to read. But anyway, there you can see it. And there's a rat picture. I was telling you. So obviously this came out when? Remember I showed you? It had to come out when they first had engravings, right? So, huh? I see. Isn't that cool? Now it shows you that it's in Latin script, but Latin numerals, Roman numerals. And it's really cool. So I'm really thankful to have this. I couldn't believe it. No one else bid on it. I'm like, nobody else bid on it? I was sitting there waiting like a puppy dog, waiting for it. Mine, like that little seagull. Mine. Precious. Anyway. I'm glad you endure my sense of humor. Okay. So, the problem with fingers, I don't know if you've got fingers, but if you got fingers, they leave oil on everything. And you don't want to, and paper absorbs oil. And if you see where a lot of books that are used, they start to get stained. I don't want to, It would be very hard to replace that book. All right. So you try and minimize it by wearing what? Gloves, right? Leave anything on it. All right. Now here, I'm going to go on here. So we're going to learn a little bit more. So you understand, spelling means absolutely what? Nothing, despite all the critics and their stupidity, ignorance. All right. So this is the first one right before the printing press. And this is the beginning of the Gospel of John from a copy of 1526 before the what? The printing press, right? Now notice this is all hand done. And this is, what kind of manuscript is it? That's not unsealed cursive, but it is a illuminated one, right? Illuminated means it's got colored pictures. It's called illuminated, okay? Illuminated manuscript. All right, so edition of William Tyndale. William Tyndale didn't do an edition of the Bible. He translated it, and it was Miles Coverdale who actually did it, and that preceded the King James Version, okay? New Testament at the British Library. Okay, so let's give a little information. The greatest challenge that Tyndale's Bible caused the Catholic Church is best summed up by Tyndale himself, when he gave one of his primary reasons for translating the Bible. Tyndale's most well-known purpose was to cause a boy that driveth the plow to know more Scripture than the clergy of the day. By this, Tyndale sought to undermine the Catholic Church's grip on both the access and interpretation of Scripture. You couldn't see it ever. You couldn't hear it, nothing. To Tyndale, a Roman Catholic priest was not needed as an intermediary between a person and God. And he is absolutely right. Nothing comes between you and who? God. No one. So here is Tyndale's. It's not. It's a copy. All right. Can't afford the real thing. But now I want you to try and read. How many here? Everybody here read English to a degree, right? Try and read this, okay? These are quite interesting. Okay, let's start with chapter 10 of John. Okay, you want to read it? There we go. Now this is what century? 1526, right? Which is the 16th century. By the way, do you all understand? Dating is a little weird, right? When you date. Not going on date. I'm talking about dating. All right, anyway, I can tell what's on your mind. Okay, so when we're talking about this is the, what century is this? What century is this? 21st century. Right? The 21st century. All right? So when you're talking about when does it become a 21st century? 2000. Pardon? 2001 starts the 21st century. 2001 starts the 21st century. 1 to 100. Then you start the 101 to 102 is the 200s. You understand? Right. So now here's what gets interesting. So if a person's in their 20s, they're 23, they're in their what? Their 30s. You understand? That's how you properly count or be able to put it in groups. Because you got units, and then you got tens, and then you got what? Hundreds. So you're dealing with your tens, going from 1 to 10, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 11 is the 20s. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21 is the 30s. You understand how that works? So how many here just wind up a whole decade older than what you were? So if you sit back and try and read this, you'll notice that one thing right off the bat is he's not a consistent speller. He does not spell the same words the same way. And there's 4 different ways of spelling the same word. Was he stupid? No. You say it as you spell it as you what? Say it. Right, what does that say?
Gospel.
Now you're saying it like he did. See? The gospel. The gospel of Saint John. You're saying it with his accent. You got it? So as you read this, you're speaking it the way he would speak. Has nothing to do with spelling, because he never spells this. I mean, he's got, what, 4? Look at that. Do you see what this? And life, and now here it says life, right? See that? That's with a Y, not an I. Right? And then you continue on, and you see up here, gospel. That's an S. Looks like an F, it's an S. If you draw a line across it, it's an F. If you don't, then it's an S. That's how they did it. There was a man, not N, sent. See that? That's sent. From God. Mm-hmm. You see how that works? So you see that the spelling differs depending on what word's in front of it, what word's after it. Isn't that interesting? So now as she goes through this, she's got the same problem. Go ahead, try and read. Go. I say. You see how you're picking up the accent by trying to pronounce it that way? It's spelt the way you sound like he would say it when he said it. That was the whole purpose of writing. Not to fit someone else's standard, because you're the one writing. I want to say it the way I want to. Does that make sense? So, anyone else like to see it? This will be here for if you want to look at it, okay? You can look at my 1680 book, but you please put on the white gloves, okay? I would appreciate it. All right, is this making sense? Isn't this interesting? So the criticism about spelling is totally irrelevant. This has nothing to do with reality. People say, well, I wish we were in the days of the scrolls. Do you realize how much scrolls those are? That's the whole Bible in scrolls. Do you understand if my house was nothing but scrolls? All my books were turned to scrolls, what it would look like? This is the whole Bible in scrolls. Now you take this and you put it in a book form, and this is what you wind up with. So when you're talking about a scroll, it's huge. And it's a big, looks like a big, what do you call it, paper towel, right? But it's not, it's lambskin. And they're all sewn together. And you'll see here, this is a scroll that's going all the way around the room. And this is the same scroll. This is Isaiah, that's Isaiah. And then each one of the books of the Bible, there's 16 books. They're all scrolls. So you get an idea why we don't use scrolls anymore and we just have books. People say, well, Frank, don't you have any scrolls? No, I won't have any room for them. All right, so where do we get the most, where are the most interesting scrolls? Anyone, when I say Hebrew scrolls, what comes to mind? What? All right, there are, let's give an applause for I don't know. I don't know why we're giving an applause. Okay. The Dead Sea Scrolls. Everyone hear of that? Okay. The Dead Sea Scrolls was the most phenomenal. Everybody said the Bible was an error. It's corrupted. You can't trust it. The Hebrew scriptures are all bullshit. And then along in 1946 to 1956, they found a lot of scrolls. And they decided to start looking at them. And the more they looked at them, they realized, oh my, OMG, right? OMG. The Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in a series of 12 caves How many caves? 12. Around the site originally known as the Frachan Caves, near the Dead Sea in the West Bank, then part of Jordan, between 1946 and 1956, by Bedouin shepherds and a team of scholars, with leashes on the Bedouin shepherds. The Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of 2,000-year-old Hebrew and Aramaic scrolls. In total, 900 manuscripts and up to 50,000 fragments were uncovered in 11 caves. And comparing the scroll of Isaiah, which they found, with modern-day Isaiah in the Hebrew, guess how many errors there were? 3. One was just missing a jot. The other one was missing 2 tittles. That's it. Pardon? Jot and tittle is just a configuration for the amount of letters on the page. And there's one place where it says, and he cried a lion, right? And it's really, I cried aloud. No, it was because of a little bitty accent was missing. It had faded out. And that's it. That's all. I mean, I've got the whole copy of the Dead Sea Scrolls. I've read them, reread them, compared them. I am like in awe. The Dead Sea Scroll, okay, and in total 900 manuscripts and up to 50,000 fragments. And they are just as precise now as they were then. Well, how old are they? They're believed to have been written somewhere between 150 BC. Now, the book of Job was said to look like it came from around 350 BC. Some of these were copies of really old manuscripts. And when was the age? When did they stop? When was the last one made? Right before 70 AD. Why? Because that's when the temple was destroyed by Rome. Remember, they killed every man, woman, and what? And they hid the manuscripts there, thinking they were going to be able to come back. And nobody survived. But they hid the manuscripts. Yes?
What content is there inside the Dead Sea Scrolls? Is it like the Old Testament? Or
Yes. All Old Testament. All old. The book of Isaiah is the most phenomenal one. Just like, wow. Now, what the Bedouin did is they would deliberately tear them in half and sell half for one price and come back and sell the other half and go, ha-ha, double their price. Then they decided to tear up the remaining ones and then deliver them until they tracked the Bedouin down and found out where they were getting it from and then got them. But anyway, they were they didn't value them. They were Muslims. They didn't value it. All right, so there's the book of Isaiah. Then, interesting. That's the book of Isaiah from the Dead Sea Scrolls. There it is. I mean, that's the visual representation. It's not the actual. You didn't think I was saying it was. Now, not the whole scroll. No, this is just a section of it. There's more. I told you it can go all the way around the room several times. And all these are stitched together lambskins. And each one is written out in Hebrew letters very delicately. And it stayed in the caves and jars. Isn't that amazing? All right, so here's a modern day boy on his bar mitzvah. He just turned 12. He has to read from the Hebrew. Now, understand, there's no vowel points there. There's no letters in between, just consonants. How is he doing it? The same way you did. You understand? I just told you that's how you read. All you care about is the what? The consonants. The first and the last. In the Hebrew, that's how it's written. Now you know. The big secret. Yes, it is. Read the critiques. Totally. But if you sit down and read Hebrew, that's exactly what you do. You don't look at the vowels. Now the vowel points will tell you how to pronounce it. Why? Because a lot of people from other countries became Jewish, and now they didn't pronounce it, and it shows them how to pronounce it. But that's all vowel points are. And that didn't come into existence until the Middle Ages, so it's like, it doesn't even show up. But when you read the Old Testament, no vowel points. You better already what? Know it. And he'd heard the scripture since he was born. So he's heard them every single day of his life, so he can sit back and read it without a problem. Pardon? Just like you did. You sit back there and you read without caring or even being concerned about the letters in between. Yes or no? Oh, yeah, the practice. Oh, yeah. Right. I mean, I sit back and I read Aramaic, and I'm like, okay, all right, I'm almost there. I'm almost there. Before I had to grab another book and go, okay, what the heck was that? Right? It was a conjugation or a composite. Right. The action is required. Proverbs 22:6. Train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not what? Depart from it. All right. So again, our first question is, ready? What's the question? And the answer is?
Men of God. Men of God.
All right. Could you? So, can you be a prophet? The answer is what?
Yes.
Yes. Can you be a man of God or woman of God? The answer is what? Yes. How do you start?
Speaking.
Start speaking. You get a chance to practice what you know and increase your understanding and knowledge and blow everybody away. I give you all my secrets. Well, not all my secrets, I mean concerning the Bible, right? Father, I thank you for the greatness of your word, and I thank you for each person's life here. They may continue to embrace their destiny, to recognize your presence within them, to walk in the greatness of your shadow, in the footsteps of your firstborn from the dead, our risen and returned Lord Jesus, your anointed. Okay. So, I'm going to ask you a question, right? You are God's what? Best.